So I'm going to start with @mentions. So let me just go ahead and get to a blank screen here. The way that @mentions work, if you've used any systems that have that, like a GitHub or a social platform, you type @ and then you start typing somebody's name. And once you start typing a certain number of characters, you expect to get a list of people who may match that list. Now you'll notice, and I mentioned this before, in the demo environment I've built, the thing that's popping up to the right with the picture and the larger name, that is an optional capability in the mentions plugin that comes through an init option. So the default behavior is you would just see the names and you'd be scrolling up and down through the names. But if your platform has more information about users, you can provide some additional context, especially in large organizations. If there's 3 Michael Smiths, seeing a picture, seeing a title, seeing a department, seeing a location might help identify which one you want. When you find the person you want and you click on them or hit enter, as I mentioned earlier, the default behavior is that we're going to throw a span class into the content, and the span is going to use a class of mention, and it's going to insert the @mention that way. As I discussed during the slides, if that's not the HTML you want placed in the editor, you have complete control through some additional init options to change that behavior, but that is the default kind of, if you don't do anything custom, you're going to get that span tag with a mention class. So from a user's perspective, that's really all there is to getting @mentions working. Now I'm not going to show a lot of code during the demo, but just to give you a sense of what's involved, as I mentioned before, the only real required function is you have to tell us what to do as somebody starts to type. What do I do to go get a valid list of users? So we pass you the query, which is what I've been typing so far. So query.term is going to return me what I'm typing, so MI or MIC, what have you. And in this case, what I've chosen to do is move it to an external function, and that function is going to handle the job of finding the users from my master list of users. So that's the only one that's required. And then in order to do the hover, this second function down here, really all I'm doing here is I'm just building some good old-fashioned HTML, and then I'm passing that new HTML object to the success callback within the menu hover init piece. So that's really all there was to get this working. Again, the hard part, or the part that's going to require some thinking on your part, is really how do I grab my list of users and how do I whittle that list down as people type? Do I preload all of them down into the page, or do I do asynchronous calls back to the server in real time and narrow the list down that way? So that's @mentions.